Hello, I'm Doc Hamels, and I'm the host of Chautauqua Sunrise. But today I will be the host for a show called Chautauqua Candidates. This is a series of 6 interviews which will be aired during the week of October 3 through the 9th. Our producer, Chris Burt, invited all candidates for the following offices: District Attorney, County Executive, New York State Assembly 150th District, New York State Senate 57th District, U.S. Congress 23rd District. But I want you to know not all candidates accepted the invitation. This interview is number 4 in the series, and we'll be featuring Mr. Richard Morrisroe, who is running for the office of County Executive. And now it's my pleasure to welcome and introduce Mr. Morrisroe.
Hi, Doc. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
So here we are. It's been a long time in planning to get all you folks here. Rich, to me, you're sort of a newcomer to the Chautauqua political scene. Have you run for office before or anything like that?
No, it's my first time running for office, and I am relatively new to Chautauqua County. I have been here working for 3 years and living for a little over 2. But I'm a Rust Belt boy, born, raised, and been a Great Lakes City resident my whole life. East Chicago, Indiana is where I was born and raised. In the Steel Belt there along the 90, Gary, East Chicago, Hammond, and then the southeast side of Chicago, across the state line. And by way of Amherst College, in 1997, I came to Buffalo as a bank trainee with M&T Bank's Management Development Program, and never left Western New York. I met a girl, a Bronx native, who came up to Buff State, Iris, formerly Fernandez, for teaching. She's an elementary school teacher, and she really liked Western New York, had a close-knit group of sorority sisters, and I fell in love. And here we are, 23 years later.
Oh my gosh.
20 years in the city of Buffalo, and then, as I said, the last 3 more or less adopted by Dunkirk, and we've adopted Dunkirk as home.
Where in Buffalo did you live? I'm a Buffalo boy.
I lived originally corner of Pennsylvania and Plymouth, my first apartment.
West Side.
West Side. And then we lived, when we got married, at the Gate Circle Apartments across from the old Millard Fillmore.
Where I was born.
Yeah. And then we bought our first house in the Elmwood Village, down the block from the old Jimmy Mac's on Anderson Place.
Okay.
And we downsized so I could go back to law school. And we bought a place in South Buffalo off of the Kaz Park Golf Course on Willink.
Okay.
Right on the West Seneca border. Half the block is actually West Seneca.
All right, super. Well, those are all my old haunts when I was growing up. I'm more Chautauquan than I am Buffalonian or Erie Countian, if that's such a word. But anyways, well, welcome, and it's nice to know that you have an interest in our county. But what brought you to Dunkirk?
Mayor Rosas was looking for a city attorney.
Willie!
Mr. Willie Rosas, yes. And we had some mutual friends in Buffalo. And I was at the time the executive director of Buffalo's Commission on Citizens' Rights and Community Relations, which was quasi-legal work, but more administrative community relations work. And I missed practicing law. I had hung a shingle right outside of law school in 2012 with a partner, Danny Hebert, Morrisroe Hebert, LLP, and we practiced general practice, mom and pop law for over 6 years. He eventually went back home to Utica, New York, so we had 2 offices under the same umbrella, but we handled everything from your garden variety traffic ticket, DWIs, criminal defense. Because I was a former realtor in a past life, a lot of real estate closings, evictions, housing court, code violation cases, those kinds of things. Ventured into some civil litigation, family court, divorces. And then I got the call from Mayor Brown, who had recognized me when I was working for former Ellicott District Councilmember Brian Davis as a legislative aide prior to law school, and offered me a job then, but I chose to go to law school. And we bumped into each other at a community event after I'd been practicing law for some years, and he says, "Let me know when you're ready to come back." And I kind of chuckled and said, "Oh, I'm doing okay." And then he kept calling. He says, "I want you back."
Wow.
So they were persistent, and I applied, and I ran it. And like I said, I enjoyed the work. I enjoyed working for his team. I was familiar with them from my stint before law school. but the role was kind of like, it wasn't really me. And so when a friend introduced me to Mayor Rosas, he says, here's what I need. I need a part-time city attorney who's willing to work beyond whatever the listed hours are. And you can also practice privately. And that was music to my ears because I wanted a foot in government. I had been in government before, and I enjoyed private practice. So I thought, this is wonderful. And Mayor Rosas, as I tell people, has cojones. In Spanish for he has stones. And
I know what you meant.
I appreciate that. As somebody who myself, one of the reasons I went to law school was so that I could have stones and eat if I upset the wrong people when I was working in government. So we hit it off, and 2 weeks later I joined the city as city attorney in July of 2017. And I've thoroughly enjoyed the role since. It's grown beyond the original half-time role to about somewhere between a 2/3 and 3/4 time. But when you're working for city government, you are on call 24/7. And also the private practice has grown again. I have a couple contractor attorneys of council working for me out of Buffalo. And I have a staff of 3 here in Dunkirk, executive assistant, receptionist, and a paralegal. And we're the only office that's fully bilingual in the county. In that myself as the attorney and my staff are all fully bilingual in the office.
Hispanic?
Yes, yes. I don't know if I told you, but I'm an Irish Puerto Rican. So my dad's
Irish Puerto Rican.
My dad's
I'm an
Morrisroe.
Irish Sicilian.
Well, there you go. There you go. Similarly spicy. My dad's the son of Irish immigrants who immigrated to Chicago in the teens and 20s, and my mom's from the island, and they met in Chicago, and she got him to retire from the priesthood. He was an Irish Catholic diocesan priest, and was a Spanish tutor, and they fell in love. He retired, went back to school, and he was a sociology professor and then a planner, and then he went back to law school after I was born to Northwestern and became an attorney. And Mom was a teacher forever and doing ESL in an elementary school. And then the last 17 years of her 40-plus year career, she was a guidance counselor at the local high school in East Chicago.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was those are the folks who raised me. In a diverse, mostly Mexican and African American neighborhood in East Chicago, of mostly steel workers, Inland Steel, LTV, and U.S. Steel were the big plants there, and civil servants, cops, firefighters, and folks who worked, doing municipal work for the city. And that was home. And what I found in Dunkirk and what I found in Buffalo is tastes of home. It was more of the world I grew up in. Lake County, Indiana, where East Chicago and Gary are, is cities right off the lake, surrounded by suburbs, and then it's all farm country to the south. Erie County, New York, and Chautauqua County are much more of the same.
Yeah.
Chautauqua County is a lot like Lake County because we're kind of, Lake County's off of Chicago, and a part of the metropolis, we're off of Buffalo. So I found a lot of home here in Western New York, and that's why I have no intention of leaving. One of the reasons why I decided to run, Doc, is that I got a son who's 20 and another son who's 16, and I don't want them to have to travel across the country and never come back like I did. Because East Chicago didn't have a ton of opportunities. It was a depopulating industrial city like Buffalo, like Dunkirk, like Jamestown. I want them to be able to come home and raise a family. I don't want to have to travel across country to see my grandkids. So my goal is to create an environment where they're welcome, their families are welcome, and they can survive and thrive. I want that for everybody's families. And that's one of the reasons I'm running.
Awesome. Okay, with that all being said, I get the attorney part. I get your for the city of Dunkirk, and my old friend Willie. Willie and I have some stories we could tell you sometime. We worked together.
Gotcha.
When I was in education, and he was a state trooper.
Okay.
What are you laughing about over there? It's all true. What do you have that, in your mind at this point, or others would think that you have, to qualify you to be a county executive? I mean, that's stepping into a little bit different world than law, right? Or
yeah,
no?
well, so you understand, I worked for 11 years in Buffalo wearing different professions before law school.
All right.
I was an 11-year gap between undergrad and I entered law school in 2008. And during those 11 years, I was a banker. I was a Spanish teacher in the Buffalo Public Schools. while I was a teacher, I did some community organizing work for Heart of the City Neighborhoods, a small housing and community development nonprofit on Buffalo's Lower West Side. And I was picked specifically because I was a hybrid, because my board was pretty lily white, and most of the community at that time was mostly Puerto Rican. And they recognized that I had a foot in both worlds, and they liked that. They fired my director at one point and offered me the job to come on full-time as executive director, and I did that for 4 years. And that role introduced me to A, running something, B, working with elected officials at all levels to try to get things done in Buffalo, and also working with the community. I had 24 different block clubs I worked with, and I would say the most diverse neighborhood in Buffalo. Folks from all walks of life, all political persuasions, all gamuts in terms of liberal, conservative, Hispanic, white, black, LGBTQ, straight, old, young, renters, and owners. And that was a great introduction into the world, into community work. The state cut budgets post 9/11. We were mostly state funded through the Division of Housing Community Renewal. I had a family to feed, so 8 months the agency went without essentially an operating budget. So I went to work for Hunt Real Estate. And I had worked with the realtors because we were flipping houses and selling them to low mod income buyers, kind of like what the word CRIC does here in Chautauqua County. And COI. And so I had worked with several of the realtors and had met Peter Hunt. I had spoke to his group about the growth of the Hispanic population, to his leadership team after the 2000 census. They offered me a position as a management trainee. They said that I had something that they liked. And I rode with that, and I was a trainee with them for 6 months, and I remained a realtor with them as a contractor, as most realtors are, for over 5 years. And in that work, I truly enjoyed learning people, the community, in all the different neighborhoods. Buffalo and the surrounding First Ring was sort of my target area. The West Side was my sweet spot because of being bilingual, but not just the only area. And what I missed, though, was mission-based work. My father, I don't know if you know, was an outside agitator as a priest, as a young priest. In the 1960s.
I went to school with Jesuits. I understand that.
He was down in Haynesville, Alabama in 1965. He and a young Episcopalian seminarian who were introduced by Stokely Carmichael. And the three of them and John Lewis in his younger years were part of a voting rights march in Lowndes County, Alabama. They were jailed for 10 days, and after that they were released. At the time, a lot of the locals had become deputized, quote unquote, and basically given license to shoot anybody they felt were trouble. My dad and the seminarian and two young African American college students went to the local Five and Dime just to get a Coke. They hadn't had a Coke in 10 days, just eating jail food and water. And one of the deputized sheriffs stopped them at the door and said, "You can't bring those N-word in here." Jonathan Daniels went to say, "But sir," opened up himself and shotgun to the stomach, boom, dead instantly. My dad and the girls turned to run.
Oh my gosh.
Shotgun to my dad's back. My dad nearly died in the street for hours until finally somebody called an ambulance. And luckily, I believe it was either Selma, or I'm not sure which hospital, one of the major cities, there was a trauma surgeon who had done time dealing with gunshot wounds in the Air Force. And after about 12 hours of surgery, they were able to save him. But the nerves were severed to his left leg, so he essentially had to relearn how to walk over 6 months, using his left leg as a living cane.
So you really have come from a culture of racial discrimination, from violence. You've seen lots of inner city stuff, so I could see where you could bring some of that to the job.
Yeah, and so when you ask me why I think I can do this, what I bring to the table is breadth of experience and also actual executive experience, both as running a nonprofit and being a board member and board president of two nonprofits that I was board members of, a charter school in Buffalo and also a nonprofit offshoot of the United Methodist Church had a sort of social service operation on the west side, the Ashbury Shalom Zone. And also then, like I said, a year and a half under Mayor Brown's leadership, and now the last 3 years plus working alongside Mayor Rosas on every major decision he's made.
One of my jobs today is to think about what people are thinking on the other side of that TV screen. And so I go off script once in a while. So here we go.
Sure.
So you've been in the county a couple, 3 years, you said?
Yes.
So the question I have for you is, tell me about Chautauqua County. What do you know about us?
What I know about Chautauqua County is it is a bellwether county, and in that it's almost evenly split between rural population and city population, and then the college town of Fredonia, which is a little different. It is almost evenly split between Democrat and Republican in enrollment, and has about a third, well, almost a third of the population that is unaffiliated or minor party affiliation. If ever there was a county that could be a testing ground for policy that can be set out statewide and also nationally, it's Chautauqua County. And I know it's a challenge as a city person and as a relative newcomer, but I feel like if given the opportunity to lead here and to make some big changes and open some doors to some new ideas, that we could be the envy of smaller Western New York counties, and I would say of most counties outside of the New York City megapolis. There is a need for a changing of the guard. And my opponent, I'm not going to get into any negativity, only to say that he was only appointed in the last year, in January. Right. But he's a continuation, sort of philosophically, of candidates in a party that's run the county executive's office since 2006. Structurally, not much has changed. Financially, not much has changed, except that we've lost tax base, and so we've had to increase taxes. So one of the things that I'd like to do is work on growing the tax base.
Okay.
That means more residents. That means more visitors. That means more tourism. That means keeping factories open and helping them expand. That means keeping farms open and helping them get decent markets so that they can actually eat. And that means growing the agribusiness processing that used to be a big part of our economy, and it's somewhat shrunk. We lost Welch's, we lost the big one, Carriage House in Fredonia, but the infrastructure is still there. We could turn those places back to life. We've just got to find the right markets, the right partners, and the right investors to make it happen.
When I was doing a little research on all the candidates, not just you, I looked at some of the things that you kind of listed of your concerns, and one you haven't mentioned is green energy. Well, tell me about that.
Well, I think a couple things on green energy. One is I think Governor Cuomo is right on in terms of making it a hard target to transition away from fossil fuels. I think 2020, beyond the pandemic, has shown us with the different weather events, and I would go back to the last 5 years of some of the major hurricanes, windstorms. I see it every day with the seawall that got toppled on last Halloween in Dunkirk, the caps. Those were 1,000-ton stones that the combination of wind and waves just knocked over.
I saw that in the Barcelona harbor as well.
Like Lego blocks. So there is no doubt in my mind, whether you believe in the science or not, that climate change is affecting our weather events and affecting our community. So the need to go green is real. However, that said, how we get there is a question mark. And I think we have to be open to new ideas. We have to be open to technology and new technologies as they evolve. And we have to be very careful about the siting process. And I know there's been some friction there based on some of the tension that happened in Arkwright, Villanueva, and there's a lot of fear of putting the windmills out in the water. There's less trepidation with the solar panel arrays, but there's some there. And ultimately, it's a decision between the private property owner, the company that wants to set up shop there, the municipality that hosts it, and the county. Because most of the financing comes through the County Industrial Development Agency, the CCIDA. I think that there has to be some middle ground found between the state law that was passed last year that hasn't been tested yet, but I assume will be tested and probably litigated, that kind of gives an ability to, no pun intended, trump the local planning and zoning boards. I think you're going to have to find some kind of middle ground there to give some more weight to the local municipalities. Being the Dunkirk attorney, I work with our planning board and our zoning board. I would hate to see the will of the people in Dunkirk easily overridden by the state.
Okay.
On the other hand, again, I understand the state's goals, and I think they're worthy goals. I think we as a country have to move towards green energy, and I'm not wedded toward any one technology or any one type. We just know that something has to give. And I wish the fossil fuel companies, being that they often have some of the deepest pockets in this country, would embrace alternative energy. And I believe some maybe are in their R&D, but aren't really publicizing it because they're still making money hand over fist in natural gas and oil. But I think they're the ones that are most capable of switching and creating some of this production. In this county, it's tough because the other factor there with where you put green energy is the NIMBY dynamic.
Not in my backyard.
Not in my backyard. I've come across people from both sides of the political aisle who are against windmills if they're put right next to their land.
Mm-hmm.
So it isn't just a tree hugger versus industrialist dynamic or liberal versus conservative. It's also a, where do you put these in a way and scale them in a way that the surrounding neighbors and neighborhood don't feel put upon.
Mm-hmm.
And again, as you know, Doc, we're in an age of fast facts, false facts, politics, whatever you want to call it, fake news. And so one of the things I challenge both those who are against green energy siting and those who are for is present the strongest case possible. Mm-hmm. As a lawyer, I'm only as good as my evidence. Right. So I tell both sides, show me real hard evidence, videos, pictures, testimonials. Bring scientists in. Work with the local schools. And let's find some common ground. Let's find some compromises that work because we need to do it. But how it's been done in the past, I think, has left a few people rubbed the wrong way.
Right.
And again, you have to get over that NIMBY because that pervades all walks of life and I think all communities.
Okay. You said you've been an executive over various organizations. Chautauqua County government's pretty big. So what kind of a leadership style would you say you have?
Well, it has to be one that's collaborative, number one, because the county government it has a very large and a pretty potent county legislature. So I don't come in pretending to override or be able to operate without collaboration and cooperation from the county legislature. I look forward to working with them. Having worked with both the Buffalo Common Council and the Dunkirk Common Council, I know what it is to not have the votes. I know how hard it is in order to get anything done. So collaboration, cooperation, and the ability to compromise are key in order to move things forward, in order to get things done.
Mm-hmm.
I think also you're only as good as your ability to delegate. So as you join a larger and lead a larger organization, you're going to have to rely more on your lieutenants. And that's the department heads, that's the labor leaders, because we are under collective bargaining agreements, and that's working with the supervisors in each department. There has to be a good line of communication vertically, up and down. And I think one of the things I'd like to bring to the table is I know what it is to do everything as a solo practitioner. Mm-hmm. Started with no staff, from taking out the garbage to filing that motion in the middle of the night. So I don't feel like I'm above any role. I have much respect for admin assistants, secretaries, and paralegals. Mm-hmm. They make the world go round in law firms, offices, and in the courts. And I scale that out to all the departments. I want to speak to the rank and file, the people that make it happen, the boots on the ground, and say, what are we doing or not doing? What could we do differently? What could we do more of? What could we get rid of? Especially given the pall of the pandemic that kind of puts a pall over all of us. In terms of budget, in terms of getting things done, in terms of meeting our mandates under state law, under federal law, I think we really have to take a deeper dive into what we can do, what we do well, and what we don't do so well. how can we change things to do better with less,
Okay.
at least in the short term.
We're down to a couple minutes, and I just want to touch one more topic that you list of interest, and you mentioned agribusiness. What, as county executive, in 1 minute or less, what would you do regarding agriculture?
Well, I think one of the things I see that's missing in Chautauqua County is in Erie County, you had the Buffalo Niagara Enterprise, I think it goes by Invest Buffalo Niagara or something now, where they were actually reaching out and going after new businesses, new investment, et cetera. I don't think we have that apparatus here, so one of the things I'd like to see change is a collaboration with the IDA, the Chambers of Commerce, the realtors, commercial and residential, and the Convention and Visitors Bureau to work together to actually send out teams to go along with me. I'm a salesman, have been throughout my whole life, dealing with people, to get people to come and see what's here. At the same time, we need to grow from within. We have a lot of energy and talent within this county in terms of small business people, potential small business people, and small farmers and potential small farmers who want to get started. We have to help them overcome whatever obstacles are in their way and do our best to get them the capital and the support they need in order to grow and to operate a new business in this county.
Okay, thank you. Rich, we're down to the last minute, thereabouts. So I'm going to give you the opportunity to tell the folks what you want them to know about you and why you're running for office.
I'm running for office because one of the lessons I've learned, Doc, over the various careers I've had as a lawyer and especially as a realtor is whenever I'm trying to help a family settle into a community, there are 5 things they need, regardless of who they are, what they look like, or who they vote for. They want a place to live that feels safe. They want a place where their kids can recreate, play, and have activities. They want a sense of belonging. And if they're owners or investors, they want to see a return on investment. And the last one is they want walkability, they want ease of access. That goes across all boundaries, all demographics. I want to do everything that I can as a county leader, empowering the county government, working with the partners at the municipal level to do the best I can to meet those goals for the people that are here and the people that want to be here and the people out there in all those big cities around us within a 2 and 3 hour radius that don't know it yet, but pretty soon they're going to want to know. They want to be here if it's up to me.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been watching Chautauqua Candidates, and my guest today has been Mr. Richard J. Morrisroe, and he is running for county executive. And this show will be rebroadcast starting October 3rd at 12 p.m. and 6 p.m. daily through the end of the week of October till October 9th. Rich, thanks for joining us, and we're going to see you next time on our next edition of Chautauqua Candidates. So now we talk and pretend we're making conversation.